What is the price of loyalty when your master is a tyrant? What do you do when saving your country means breaking your oath to it? This is not a philosophical question. It's the true story of one man, the greatest general you've never heard of. A man who fought impossible battles, reclaimed lost empires, and stood as the final pillar holding up a crumbling world. His name was Belisarius. And his reward for saving civilization was to have it systematically torn from him, piece, by the very emperor he served. He wasn't just a soldier. He was the last Roman. And his story is a masterclass in how talent, dedication, and genius can be strangled by the one thing it cannot defeat, the paranoia of the powerful. This is the story of the man who held back the Dark Ages, and the betrayal that unleashed them. The year is 500 AD. The Roman Empire is a corpse, picked clean. The West, Italy, Spain, Gaul, North Africa, is gone, ruled by Germanic kings. The city of Rome itself is a ghost town, its population collapsed, its grand buildings crumbling. The light of the classical world is guttering out. But in the east, in the colossal golden city of Constantinople, the Roman Empire still breathes. Just barely. And in 527 AD, a new emperor, Justinian, takes the throne. He is not a warrior, he is a lawyer, a bureaucrat, a theologian. And he is possessed by a single audacious and arguably insane dream: to take it all back. To reunite the Mediterranean under the Roman banner. To be a new Caesar. It was a gamble against history itself. The treasury was empty. The army was a shadow. The enemies were vast and battle-hardened. To achieve this impossible dream, Justinian needed a weapon. He needed a general who could work miracles. He found him in a man from the provinces, a soldier named Flavius Belisarius. Belisarius was everything Justinian was not. Tall, charismatic, a natural leader of men. He was a tactical prodigy, a master of the new style of warfare built on swift, heavy cavalry. But his most crucial quality in Justinian's eyes was his background. He wasn't from the old, scheming aristocracy. He was a man who owed everything to the emperor. In theory, his loyalty would be absolute. That loyalty would be tested almost immediately, not on a distant frontier, but in the very heart of the capital. In 532 AD, Constantinople exploded. The city's two main political factions, the Blues and the Greens, united in a fury over Justinian's heavy taxes and autocratic rule. They set the city on fire, proclaimed a new emperor, and laid siege to the palace. Justinian's advisors begged him to flee. The dream was over before it had begun. In the panic-stricken throne room, one voice cut through the chaos. The Empress Theodora, a former actress of formidable will, refused to run. Royal purple, she declared, is the noblest shroud. They would fight. The task of turning that defiant stand into a victory fell to Belisarius. He led a small force of hardened Gothic mercenaries into the hippodrome, where the vast rebel mob was gathered. The exits were sealed. What followed was not a battle but a slaughter. Tens of thousands were cut down in the ancient stadium. The Nika revolt was drowned in blood. Belisarius had saved the throne. He had saved Justinian's life. He was the hero of the hour. But in the eyes of the emperor and especially the deeply suspicious Theodora, a dangerous seed was planted. This man held the power of life and death over the empire. He commanded the loyalty of barbarian troops inside the capital. He was a savior, and saviors can become rivals. The bond between emperor and general was sealed in blood, but it was now fractured by fear. With the internal threat crushed, Justinian could finally look outward. His first target was the most symbolically potent, the Vandal kingdom of North Africa. The Vandals were the boogeymen of the Roman world. A century earlier they had swept through the empire, conquered its richest province, North Africa, and sacked the city of Rome itself. To Romans their name was a byword for destruction. Justinian gave Belisarius a pathetically small force, 15,000 men and 92 ships. It was a suicide mission, and many in Constantinople hoped it would be. If Belisarius failed, the ambitious general would be gone. If he succeeded, the glory would be Justinian's. The voyage was a nightmare. When they landed in Africa, Belisarius faced a terrified army, convinced they were marching to their doom. His first act was one of psychological genius. He forbade looting. He presented himself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator, there to free the Roman population from the Vandal yoke. The Vandal king Gelimer was arrogant and unprepared. At the Battle of Ad Decimum, just outside Carthage, Belisarius's tactical brilliance met Gelimer's disorganization. In the chaos, Gelimer found his own brother dead on the field. Consumed by grief, he hesitated. Belisarius did not. He launched a devastating counterattack and shattered the Vandal army. Within months, the Vandal kingdom, which had stood for a century, was erased. Belisarius marched into Carthage a conqueror. He returned to Constantinople in 534, parading through the streets with the Vandal king in chains and the lost treasures of Jerusalem, which the Vandals had looted from Rome. The city went wild. Belisarius was the new Scipio Africanus, a living legend. He was at the peak of his power. And that was the most dangerous place to be in Justinian's court. The next target was the greatest prize of all, Italy and Rome itself. It would be the campaign that would make him and then break him completely. In 535, Belisarius landed in Sicily with only 7,500 men. His mission, to reclaim the Italian peninsula from the Ostrogoths. Again he was given a tiny force, expected to perform miracles without adequate support. And for a time he did. Sicily fell easily. He crossed into Italy, capturing Naples. The Roman population welcomed him. The Ostrogoths, panicked, deposed their weak king and elected a warrior, Vitiges. As Vitiges marched south with a massive army, Belisarius made his most audacious move yet. He marched his tiny force directly into the city of Rome. The city was a skeleton. Its population was a fraction of its ancient size. The massive Aurelian walls were crumbling. But Belisarius saw its symbolic power. He frantically prepared for a siege he knew was coming. In March 537, Vitiges arrived with a force that dwarfed the Roman defenders, tens of thousands against Belisarius's 5,000. The siege of Rome had begun. It would last for 1 year and 9 days. This was Belisarius's masterpiece. For over a year he defended a 12-mile wall with a handful of men. He was a whirlwind of energy, directing repairs, leading daring raids, outthinking the Goths at every turn. He used the ancient aqueducts as secret passageways. He burned their siege towers. He fought them in dark, claustrophobic tunnel fights beneath the walls. He won through psychology, writing fake letters about reinforcements and appearing on different sections of the ramparts to seem everywhere at once. But inside the city people starved. He was forced to expel the civilians to save food, a heartbreaking decision for a liberator. Through sheer force of will he held. When a relief force finally broke the siege in 538, Belisarius had achieved the impossible. He had saved Rome. But his victory was immediately undercut. Justinian, fearful of his general's growing fame and power, sent a rival, the court eunuch Narses, to split the command. The campaign stalled in a morass of jealousy and infighting. Justinian, now facing threats elsewhere, recalled Belisarius to Constantinople in 540. It was a catastrophic error. With Belisarius gone, the Goths found a brilliant new leader, Totila, who swept through Italy, undoing all of Belisarius's hard-won gains. When Belisarius was sent back in 544, it was a setup for failure. Justinian, now deeply under Theodora's influence, gave him a skeleton force and no money. He was being set up to fail, his reputation deliberately tarnished. He fought a desperate, grinding war for years, winning battles but losing the war because he lacked the resources to hold anything. The loyal general was being systematically bled dry by the emperor he had saved. The final, personal betrayal was yet to come. In 548, Theodora died. Her passing removed Belisarius's most powerful enemy, but it also unleashed Justinian's full, untempered paranoia. The general who had given him an empire was now a permanent reminder of his own debt and insecurity. The end came in 562. Belisarius, now an old man, was implicated in a vague and almost certainly fabricated conspiracy. He was arrested. His property was confiscated. The legend, the savior of Africa and defender of Rome, was placed under house arrest, a disgraced prisoner. The story of him being blinded and begging in the streets is a powerful myth, but it captures the essential truth, the ultimate ingratitude of the power he served. He was pardoned after a few months, but the damage was done. The message was sent. He died in 565, a few months before Justinian. The legacy of Belisarius is not one of lasting victory. The reconquest of Italy was a Pyrrhic one. The war had left the peninsula a devastated, plague-ridden wreck. The treasury was bankrupt, the army exhausted. Within years of their deaths, a new Germanic tribe, the Lombards, invaded and took most of Italy for good. The dream of restoration was dead. The Roman Empire in the west was finished. Belisarius's life's work had, in fact, accelerated the collapse. By exhausting the empire in a futile attempt to reclaim its past, he had ensured it had no strength left for the future. The world that emerged from the ashes of his campaigns was the very one he had fought to prevent, a fragmented Europe of feudal kingdoms, of knights and castles, where the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, would rise to fill the power vacuum. The Middle Ages had begun. So, what is the lesson of Belisarius? He was the last great Roman, a man of antiquity born too late. He possessed all the talent, courage, and strategic genius of the empire's founders. But he served a master who valued control above victory, and suspicion above loyalty. His story is a timeless warning about the fatal flaw of absolute power, its inability to tolerate the very talent it needs to survive. Justinian needed a Belisarius to build his legacy, but he could not stomach the man's existence once it was built. Belisarius was not defeated by the Goths or the Vandals. He was defeated by the petty fears of the court. His tragedy is that of the individual crushed by the system they fight for. He was the last man who could have saved Rome. And his failure teaches us one brutal, enduring truth, that the greatest threats to an empire often come not from the barbarians at the gate, but from the rot within the throne room.